Anton. Welcome to the stage. Applaus for Anton. So for me, today is a special moment because I told you from the beginning, for 2 years I worked for Sender, and I was on a regular basis very frustrated because I checked my trucks and the visibility was not working.
Yeah.
So now you are here today from CO3 because I remember our data provider was CO3. What is the reason?
Exactly. So you would think that track and trace is a super simple problem to solve, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it and why it's not that easy and why it should be. Fortunately enough, today we're at a far better level than we used to be.
Okay. So applause. Stage is yours.
Thanks. Great to be here. So the topic tonight is going to be about connected vehicles and how to access the data from it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, kind of how I ended up doing CO3. But to ease you into the topic, I will start with talking a little bit about CO3 itself, because most of you probably are not aware of what CO3 is and what we're doing. So CO3, to make it very simple, we enable our customers and our partners to tap into the data stream in real time from any connected vehicle. And today we have around 190,000 vehicles that's rolling on the roads and are connected. And as you can see on the snapshot here, those vehicles are actually covering most of the major lanes around Europe today. But my journey didn't start here. Today, CO3, we're focusing on selling services mainly to freight forwarders, to shippers, to log tech companies. But my journey started out with the truckers and trucks. So I used to work at Scania for about 7 years, always within the area of connected services. How could we leverage the data to increase the uptime and enable the carriers to earn more money? And then Scania went and made an investment into a small startup company from Germany. It was called Sender. Of course, turned out to be hugely successful and becoming one of the leading forwarding companies in Europe today. And I later went on to join a project there. So in 2020, I went to the strategy team in Sender on a joint project. And the Sender team had already realized and came to the conclusion that real-time data from vehicles is going to be absolutely crucial for their future success. And number two, they also realized that all of the solutions that were out in the market were underperforming and not up to the task. So that's why they decided a little bit before that to fund a new company called CO3. And the founder of Sender then came to me and had a chat to see if I would be interested in joining the founder team there at CO3, given my background at Scania. And I must say at first I was a little bit skeptical because it was pitched like a track and trace solution, and I had this in mind. Track and trace, that's at least 90s technology, right? I remember even in primary school, I used to work, I kind of tagged along one of my football coach, I think it was, to his workplace for a week, and he was working on track and trace in the 90s. You could see even the OEMs, the trucking OEMs, they start to deploy their solutions by the second half of the 90s, and then a decade after that, you have a lot of the retrofit providers popping up. You have hundreds of active providers, and in the last decade, all of the major European truck manufacturers actually decided that each truck going out of a factory, it should have a telematic device installed already. So for sure, this must be a solved problem already, right? Can't be that complicated. Of course, it turns out it's more complicated than that. And the adoption of this technology is very unevenly spread across the value chain. So if you're working at a truck manufacturer, if you're developing services for the fleet owners, there's quite sophisticated use of the data, particularly within predictive maintenance, where you're blending physical modeling and know-how from the engineers with some machine learning, deploying virtual sensors on the vehicles, on the control units to send a health check back to the workshops, for example. And then you jump into the logistics space, and you look at the reality for a freight forwarding company in 2020. And the reality is that if they're doing a great job, if they're at the forefront of this, they might be lucky and get an update on a map every 15 minutes. And if they're doing a really good job, it meant that they could maybe reach that level of tracking for 50% of their shipments. And that's in an era where I can track my pizza delivery in real time from Lieferando or Uber Eats. So something is going on here. Clearly, there's a big opportunity, and I was very interested to join. I think also this kind of ties into to this picture. We're struggling with a lot of inefficiencies and problems in the road freight industry in Europe today. We have poor fill rates, a lot of empty trips, and the data that is available, it's clearly available, it's not leveraged to solve these issues. So what's going on here? I think that the problem is that the data is available for the fleet owners. And the fleet owners, they might be a small trucking company with 5 trucks. And to solve these really systemic issues, you need access to a large network. You need quite sophisticated technology. It's clearly something that the small trucking companies cannot solve on their own. So the big question is here, how can we make this data available to log tech companies, to shippers, to freight forwarders with significant networks? That's the problem to focus on. And the issue, why it's hard, is a fragmented industry. And there's a lot of fragmentation in the telematic space as well. There's hundreds of active providers, and there's no standards, basically. And this is kind of the foundation which CO3 is built upon. So basically what we set out to build is what we call a one-plug connector. We connect to the truck and trailer manufacturers to tap into the factory-fitted telematics. And we also built integrations with more than 450 different telematic providers. We're kind of bringing that data online, we're standardizing, cleaning a little bit, and then we plug that data directly into the software stack of our customers and partners. So we're essentially the data pipeline. We don't do a lot of advanced analytics on top of this. We're just making sure that this data gets available to the companies that have the right capabilities to solve the big issues in the industry. And key component of this, if we kind of go back a little bit to this huge gap of data that is not being leveraged, a truck today is basically a computer on wheels. And we see it as our mission to help companies unlock this data. And that's why we're working very tightly with truck and trailer manufacturers, both on a strategy level, on a tech level, and also on a commercial level, to make sure that we can acquire data directly from the factory-fitted telematics, because those typically hold a lot more richer data sets. It's a little bit more standardized, and it's typically higher quality than you get from your kind of regular third-party telematic provider. So thanks to this, we can finally enable our customers to kind of go beyond track and trace as well, and that's a key part of kind of why we're doing this. The data itself is, of course, not valuable unless you put it to good use. So if you look a little bit at kind of some of the use cases that our customers and partners are leveraging this data for, automation is typically the number one for a freight forwarding company. We did a measurement here with one of our customers. They tracked kind of the time spent on their operations team for a year for all of their loads, really big volumes. And they came to the conclusion that they're saving 8 minutes per shipment. Might not sound like a lot, but that's about €5 in cost. And if you're doing more than 1,000 loads on a daily basis, that's a lot of money. So great business case to start with, and it doesn't require that sophisticated capabilities either. Second part, sustainability. I suspect we'll hear a little bit more about that in the third talk today. But primary data, such as the fuel consumption, the emission of the engine, distance driven, the amount of empty kilometers, absolute game changer to upgrade your accuracy of the reporting. And then if you can actually measure it, then you can start to take actions and actually make an impact here. Third one. We're also supporting customers with developing new products. For example, mobility providers, fleet management system providers that would like to offer mixed fleet services without the need of retrofitting new hardware. So that's a big thing for us as well. And most importantly, I would like to highlight this because I think that this kind of relates to one of the big problems that we have in the space, and that's actually sharing the data. So a lot of our customers, especially on the freight forwarding side, they're working for multiple shippers. Each shipper has their own platform, and these companies absolutely hate to have to kind of bring another platform on board. So we actively support pushing data to any kind of other visibility platform, even if they might be in competition with us. We push data to customer platforms. We push data to different TMS systems, and I think that's absolutely crucial. And that's where I would like to end with this slide. And just say that interoperability, I think, is that is the number one thing for a premium kind of log tech solution today, because most of the issues that we're facing, they are kind of related to fragmentation and data silos. And if you want to be a part of that solution, I think you really need to kind of put integrations and interoperability on the priority list here. So that's it. That's it for me.
Thank you. Very impressive. As we are a little bit behind schedule, we will directly start with the questions from the audience. So feel free. Who wants to start with the first question?
Yes, thank you. Are you busy in the petrol station replenishment business?
What did you say? Excuse me?
Are you busy in the petrol station replenishment business? Or the petrol?
With the petrol station. So
yes.
we are working with a couple of fuel card providers. And that's mainly kind of to either to provide data to them, but also one of the key topics is getting access to the actual kind of fuel data, what gets fueled in the trucks as well. I think that's not something that we offer today, but it's definitely I think a key enabler if we want to take the accuracy of the sustainability reporting to the next level.
In Germany, we have a standard for this data thing for truck loading. Is it in Europe, this petrol station thing, or?
Yeah, that would be Europe. We were thinking Europe-wide at least for everything that we're doing.
Next question.
Which branch of trucks do you support? And if you don't support them by now, how do you think about integrating them?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We offer different levels of support for the trucks as well. So we have integrations with every major truck manufacturer. So the kind of the 7 big European brands we have integrations with. But we don't have a commercial relationship with every one of them, and that's putting some. So for some of the trucks, the carrier still needs to kind of be actively subscribing and paying for the services, and for some of the truck manufacturers, we can actually do that directly from CO3, even if the actual fleet owner might be using another kind of service on their vehicles. So the truck manufacturers that we support today, it's the Scania truck, it's DAF trucks, it's the MAN trucks, and the rest we have integrations with.
Next question, Philip, to the left.
Okay, hey, my name is Pierre. I appreciate your presentation. So what I was wondering, since your closing was about the real potential is about sharing the data. So yeah. I was thinking about what is your solution actually the ISO container solution for telematics, or if not, what has to be done to be something like that?
So we're still kind of a platform that processes the data. So it's not a kind of maybe not standard in the way that you're thinking, but our aim is to be able to support any type of service that needs access to this, and to be a kind of a neutral player in that sense.
Hello. One question. What is the actual business model? So it's a data marketplace, as I understand it, but how does it actually work?
Depends a little bit on the type of use case we're working with, but if you look at freight forwarding company, for example, is typically based on the shipment volume. So the number of successfully kind of tracked shipments, that's what we're billing against. And if you're in the fleet management space, for example, where you need to access to 24/7 data, then it's a per vehicle per time period model essentially. But it's closely tied to the actual usage of the platform.
Hello.
Could you explain to me a little bit more? I don't really get it. The differentiations to the other platforms. Because now, me as a shipper, I want to know where my load is. Now there's different platforms for this information. So you are close to the vehicle, right? And you kind of aggregate or like join or this information from the different vehicles for the carrier. And then there's Project 44 or 4Kite that again then collects from the different carriers the information for the shipper. Now, isn't there a danger that they will also like overtake your part of this value chain, so to say?
I would say probably it's going in a little bit in the other direction. So all of these players that you mentioned, 4Kites, Project 44, they have data aggregation capabilities in-house as well. But what you see is that most of these companies, they're focusing very much on the kind of, the multimodal supply chains, solving the needs of big shippers, and we're a little bit closer to kind of the vehicles, if you will, and we're purely focused on the road freight part as well. So where I see, one potential way that this could develop is you have, modality champions that kind of, aggregate data from different modalities, and that's, then gets leveraged in larger, more complete solutions. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of an overlap in some areas.
Philip?
Yeah, I've got one question to fill the gap. Anton, when I looking at what you do, seems like integrating those 450 telematics providers is kind of like your moat, kind of what differentiates you to the competition. Do you see any European legislation, any European data transparency initiatives establishing a standard, or the OEMs offering these services on their behalf? Do you see any tendencies from that direction that might pose a risk to your core business model?
I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, one legislation to definitely keep an eye on is the Data Act, which could potentially open up a lot more data. On the other hand, I think that in reality, it's going to be hard to actually enforce parts of it. But on kind of on our side, we're kind of hoping that that brings an impact, because I think in the end, more data available is better.
So in the beginning, you said that up until now, most of the trucks only send like position every 15 minutes or something. Yeah. Can you maybe explain more what is the difficulty there? Because it sounds like the trucks are already connected, right? But why do they only send every 15 minutes?
A couple of different reasons. So first one is that there's different telematic solutions deployed on every truck. So the tricky part is guaranteeing a certain type of frequency. Because you have solutions that are sending every 1 minute and have great quality, and then you have other solutions that send every half an hour. And if you're a freight forwarder or a shipper, you're not in control over which solution is on the vehicle. That's the fleet owner that chose. They might opt for the cheapest solution, or something that's good enough for their use cases. That does not mean that that data is good enough for another stakeholder that wishes to use it. So I think that's part of it. There's also a commercial aspect to it. So technically, maybe the fleet owner even has access to more, but to save costs, the fleet management provider might cut the frequency on their API connections. That's something that we see as well. So I think the lack of control is the issue, and you can't really kind of since there are no standards in place, it means that you don't really know what you get. And that's kind of the difference and the advantage with going with the OEMs in our case, because we're actually purchasing data from the OEMs, which means that we can put service level agreements in place. We can control the quality directly, and what data we need for different use cases of our customers.
One last question.
What's your position on autonomous trucking?
A great question. Yeah, I mean. We're not particularly close to that at CO3. I think it's a super exciting field that will likely be deployed in certain kind of quite controlled environments first. Great opportunities within the mining industry, for example. Closed sites, you can kind of control the environment and the safety, and at the same time, it kind of opens up for new operations in areas where it can be hard even to employ people. So I think that's great. In kind of closer to our space, I mean, hub to hub, probably one of the more interesting areas. But I think really hard topic to predict anything, because there's a lot of not only technological challenges but also legislation. But yeah.
Good, quite on time. Anton, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.